Okay, well, it's 4 o'clock now, so I think we'll get started. Colin, we look forward to seeing Special IApps. You did a presentation for us at the ESL conference, and it was really, really fantastic. So we look forward to some of the apps that you've designed yourself and made yourself. So well done to you. Okay, so over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig, and thank you to everybody for attending today. If you did see our webinar at the ASL conference, hopefully there'll be some new things in here today for you as well. If not, I need to do a little introduction. So, Special IApps. In 2005, my wife and I had a second child, William, who's in the picture here, who was born with Down syndrome and later diagnosed as having autism spectrum disorder, and he has a number of other complications to go with it. And in 2010, after the iPad came out, we got an iPad for William. Discovered that the apps we could find for William on the iPad weren't really suitable because of his learning disabilities, his lack of hand-eye coordination, fine motor control, and so on. And as Bev and I had worked for many years in IT and in education, we decided that we would write an app for William. And from there, Special IApps was started, and we've gone from strength to strength. We're a non-profit, and we go out of our way not to have adverts or tracking and things like that in our apps, because that's not what we want for our own son. To our amazement, since we started, we've now had our apps downloaded in over 100 countries, and with the help of over 50 volunteers from around the world, they're now being used in more than 25 languages, and they're being used at home, in many schools, nurseries, by speech therapists as part of their essential toolkit, and helping children and also adults with a range of learning disabilities, including autism, Down syndrome, dyslexia, dyspraxia, cerebral palsy, and so on. Now, what I'm going to do now is actually play you William's story. Let me just make this bigger for you. So this is William's story. I'm just struggling with a bit of technology here, bear with me. Okay. So this is William in Bev's tummy, and here's a scan of it. And here he is just after he was born. But when he was 1 day old, he had to have surgery for duodenal atresia. He had a blockage in his small intestine. And here is his brother Joseph, who was just nearly 6 at the time, now a 4th-year medical student at Newcastle University. And William needed more surgery, another couple of weeks in the hospital, and which turned into 2 months in hospital. And then after about 6 months, he started having epileptic seizures. The electrodes on his head are there to measure that. But as soon as we could, we took him to an organisation called the Education Centre for Children with Down syndrome. And despite everything, William's always been really happy, really positive, and really keen to learn. Here he is swimming underwater with his brother. We've taken him skiing, which basically means that one person pushes him from the top of the slope and someone else with their arms out catches him at the bottom. He likes dressing up as knights. He's had a go at rock climbing. He likes to go to the beach. He's been around the London Eye. He's presented on BBC Radio Newcastle. And he has a trike, which the family fund paid for him because he can't actually ride a two-wheeled bicycle. And Well, this was written a year ago. He's now in year 10 at Belmont Community School in mainstream secondary education, with the full-time support of learning assistants. But he's doing very, very well, and he has lots of friends there. So I'll just take you back to the presentation. So as at the moment, we have apps for iPad, iPhone, Android, Chromebooks, and we support all sorts of peripheral devices, including switches and so on, for those who can't actually interact directly with a tablet screen. We're quite excited because at the start of next year, we're going to be launching new multi-platform web editions of our apps, with flexible subscription-based licensing and trial periods. And not only will they then work not just on iPad and iPhone, Android and Chromebook, but also they will work on Mac, Windows, Linux, and on Windows they will work in tablet mode. And if you have a touch screen, you'll be able to use them with a touch screen on Windows. And this is some of the feedback that we've had from around the world about our apps. And a couple of years ago, my wife Bev, whose idea Special IApps was awarded an MBE by the Queen for the work that we do. Now, we have a range of different apps for literacy, some of which I'll show you in the next 15 minutes or so. So we'll go through these. And I'm not going to take you through this in all of this in detail, but there's no substitute for data. Back in 2012, Durham Local Education Authority decided to assess the effectiveness of our Special Words app in a variety of areas, including teaching kids to read, improving their hand-eye coordination and fine motor skills, attention, and so on. And the local authority bought some iPads, put them into mainstream schools that had children with special needs, and asked the teaching assistants to spend 10 minutes a day, 4 or 5 times a week, using our Special Words app, and to do a baseline assessment of many attributes at the start of the term and see how the children had progressed by the end. And for instance, if you look at child H, this was a little girl who was 5 and had Down syndrome. We were able to establish that at the start of the term, she really only could recognize 5 written words in terms of sight vocabulary. By the end of the term, just from using the app a few minutes every day, she was able to recognize 96 written words. And the only reason I think it wasn't more was because there were only 96 words in the app. And that's obviously considerably more progress than one would expect for a child in her position otherwise. And we've seen similar results in many other places too. So why don't I show you our Special Words app in action? Now, what we've done with all of our apps is intentionally give them a very uncluttered interface, because we know that if you have, say, Down syndrome or autism, that if there is too much going on in an app, then it's either too distracting or too confusing. And the activity you can see here, what the child needs to do is simply match the picture in the center to the correct one around the edge. And there are a number of ways they can do that. They can actually pick the card up and drag it.
Book. Ball.
Like that. It doesn't matter if they let go while dragging. It doesn't matter if they choose to place it over a different card while they're thinking about it. There are no negative rewards in here. There are no invisible elastic bands trying to undo what the child is doing. And whereas most adults, if asked to do this, would probably move the card to within a millimetre of exactly overlapping it, many of the kids with additional needs obviously can't do that, and we don't require them to do that. So as long as the cards overlap when they let go, we know what they meant.
Dolly.
And if they can't drag a card, all they need to do is to tap the one that matches.
Dolly. Car.
And so on.
Car.
You can then go on to the next page.
Cat.
Now, there are a variety of activities in here. In addition, you can customize the settings to suit the child's ability, and you can also personalize it with your own content. And that's important because we know that children learn much better with content that's relevant and of interest to them. But to start with, at least we would probably start a child off, and we do this with 2-year-olds up to 7 or 8 year olds, depending on their ability. And after learning to match the pictures, which shows them the words, we take them on to matching the words, which shows them the pictures. Now, if you cast your mind back to when you couldn't read, it's probably you don't remember, but if you imagine this was all in Sanskrit, hieroglyphics or something, you would have no idea of what you were looking for to match. You wouldn't really know what you were trying to discriminate between these different words. And in fact, the ball and the book look very similar. They both start with the same letter. The A is similar to the O, and so on. And we're not focused on phonetics here because we know that for many children with additional needs have quite good sight memories and find phonetics quite challenging. And so in order that they can succeed and make progress, we're quite happy to start them off using sight words like this. And so
Ball. Book.
This time they're matching the words, which shows them the pictures.
Book. Car.
And what happens as they go along is that this information is actually sinking in. And we can go on to
Book.
match words to pictures.
Book. Ball.
And then matching pictures to words. Now, the pictures to words is the activity which I showed you that chart earlier of that little girl with Down syndrome making such progress. And this proved to be an incredibly effective assessment tool.
Car.
Because you can put this in front of a child and they will show you which words they know how to read, even if they can't write, even if they can't speak. I actually did a seminar at Disability North in Newcastle a few years ago.
Car.
And a little girl came along with her parents. She was 5 years old.
Book.
She was in her wheelchair. She had catalepsy and narcolepsy, epilepsy, and cerebral palsy. Looked very frail, and her parents said they didn't think that she wouldn't be able to use this because she wouldn't be able to use the touch screen. And actually, we put an assistive switch on her lap that she could just tap. And I held the iPad in front of her, and she quite successfully matched words like this. And her father was nearly in tears because he said that they didn't realize that she could choose between more than 2 things at once. And that's because she hadn't had the opportunity or the tools to demonstrate what she actually knew. I'm going to play you a little video now. And you can see the sort of experience that a little child might have using the app. Now, I was very privileged to go to Ukraine back in 2017 to visit Down syndrome Ukraine. And while we were there, we were setting up for a workshop for parents of kids with Down syndrome and autism. And this little boy, Max, who was 3 at the time and has Down syndrome, was running around I'm pause this at the moment, this video. Max was running around, opening and closing doors, slamming them, getting into cupboards, and generally being mischievous. I said to, I got his mum to ask him, you know, would he like to try playing on my iPad, which he would. And so he'd never seen this before, but this was his reaction and what he did with it.
Excellent.
Велосипед. Велосипед. Качели. Качели.
So I think, as you can see, Max enjoyed using that, and our experience generally is that you know, children actually quite like this simplistic user interface. If you were to watch the BBC News at 10 on the TV of an evening, it's a very we're used to a very bombarding multimedia experience. So if there will be a news presenter. Behind them is a TV studio with someone going down the stairs, someone else opening their sandwiches at a desk. There's a rectangle with a picture inset behind the newscaster of something to do with the story he's talking about. But along the bottom there's a ticker tape running with highlights of all sorts of other news stories that have got nothing to do with the one that he's currently talking about. And in some cases there's music playing at the same time. And we're used to this multimedia bombardment, and there is a tendency in some cases to make technology that's meant to teach children very gamey, kind of I think on the assumption that you know, we need to entertain them and then kind of as a side effect they'll learn. But we're quite up front with the kids and basically saying this is what you're going to do, and not try and do disguised learning, and for us that seems, for the children we work with around the world, that seems to work very well. Now I showed you William's story earlier, and that was in our stories app, special stories. I've been demonstrating special words when I'm moving on to special stories, and this is another of our leading apps which we use and many kids use around the world on a daily basis. I showed you William's story here. We use it for homeschool communication. Every day William takes his iPad to school and he comes back with at least one story on his iPad that's been created by his teaching assistant as they went along. Here's just an example of a very simple when he was back in primary school. There's no audio in this, there could be, and a simple story about what they were doing at school. And consequently, although William can't tell us verbally what he did at school today, he's more than capable of operating the iPad. He can find the story, he can show us, you know, we can think about it with him, and we know what's going on at school, and we can extend that learning as appropriate. It also works the other way around, because if we say we went to a zoo at the weekend, we could create a story, you know, special stories up on phones, we go round, we could then transfer that story to his iPad, or we could email it to school for them to use on their iPad. So that, and in a primary context, school context, I want to use that in a show and tell session or something like that. Connect the iPad to the interactive whiteboard in the classroom, and the child who is non-verbal can actually present to their peers. We use it for simple instruction stories.
Make an cake. We need flour. We need sugar. We need eggs. We need butter. We mix all of the ingredients. We bake the cake in the oven. We make the buttercream. We decorate the cake. All done.
And the other main use we have for it is for social stories. So, for instance, I had to take William to the dental hospital, and I created a story while I was there because it's quite a scary experience, and we can look at that story before we have to go again the next time. So things started off well at this appointment. He saw the dentist. Dentist gave him a little mirror to take away with him, and then Dad took him down to a room where there was a lady and a sort of faint humming noise and a chair in the middle of the room. And we asked William to sit down. We put a heavy thing round his neck, and then Daddy and the lady ran away because the X-ray machine was about to spring into life. And at the moment Daddy and the lady ran away, William got out of the chair and followed us because he was working on the basis, I think, that if it's not good for Dad, it's probably not good for me. And so actually it was quite an effort then to get him back into the chair and sit still for long enough. But we managed, and we got a 360-degree X-ray of his teeth, and we could see there's some problems with what was coming through. And then we had to go and wait for a bit, and then he had another X-ray. But eventually it was all done, and he lived to tell the tale. And before we go again, we will show that. And so, for instance, also if you have a child in your class on the autism spectrum who you know is going to be very stressed about going swimming with the school for the first time, it might be a good idea to create a story about what that swimming pool actually looks like, its changing facilities, the actual pool itself, and so on, and show that to the child before they go. So there's some sense of familiarity with it in advance, and then hopefully their stress level for the actual event will be reduced slightly. Now, what I haven't shown you yet is in either of these apps is, and I'll quickly do, is adding your own content, because it is very, very easy to do and extremely time saving. If I go back to our special words app, then I have a list of 96 words that we provided. There are more you can download from our website, but you can add your own words, and that's very easy to do. If there's a plus button in the middle at the top, and if I just tap plus, I can take a picture. So I'll just wave this outside of the garden, which is a bit wet today. And I'll type in a word. And then I'll record the word, garden, and then save that. And now when I go back to the activity, my garden is one of the words in the activity. Garden. So very quick and easy to do that.
Dolly.
If you compare with having to take pictures and print them out and possibly laminate them and so on. And it's so quick that you can actually do this with the child rather than having to do it in the spare time you haven't got. We would encourage parents and teachers actually to create multiple lists of words. And so we could have a list of words. If I've got a copy of it here, let me just check. I may not have a copy of it with me. We had a list of words that was who lives at our house, and so that was myself, my wife, my two sons, and so on. Creating a personal set of words to play with, and then you can actually transfer the content between the words app and the stories app to extend the learning process further. Now I'm conscious that I'm running out of time. I will just mention that moving on from there, we have a spelling app.
Eyes. Air. Yeah. Air. Eyes.
Which again is very configurable, and you can add your own content. And we also have a sentences app.
I feel happy.
Where you can learn to construct sentences. again with your own content if you wish.
I feel happy. Full stop. I feel happy.
I think I should probably pause there, Craig, and let you see if there's any questions.
Yes, sure, Colin. Thanks. That was fascinating. I just love the simplicity of you know, the apps, and you know, there's no sort of they're so uncluttered. You know, there's no room for anything just other than focusing on the task. So that's great. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pop the web address into the bar here, and if you have any questions for Colin, please just type the questions into the chat box there, and we'll pass them on to Colin. So we have about 5 minutes for questions and answers. That would be great. Thanks. So any questions you have, please pop them into the box, and Colin will answer them.
And if you have any questions later, you're more than welcome to contact us at any time.
Okay. I love the story about your son. So that's done so well.
From a rocky start, I think he's done very well.
Yeah. Gillian's asking, can you use your own images in the literacy apps?
Yes, you can. You can take your own photos. You can either take in all these apps. You can use your own pictures. You can even change the pictures for the existing things. So, for instance, where there's a picture of a green car in special words, you know, if the child says that's not my car's blue, you could simply go out to your front driveway and replace that by a picture of your own car. And the same is true in the spelling and sentences apps, that you can either add your own content with pictures or replace the pictures that are already there. And you can either take a picture with the camera on the device, or just go to, it'll also allow you to select any picture that's already in your picture library on the device.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Any others? Louise is asking, once bought, can the app be used on multiple devices?
It depends on the licensing where you are. We have the apps for iOS and we have the IApps for Android, and then they're kind of not interchangeable. So that if you had a Samsung phone and an Apple iPad, and you wanted to use the apps on both, you would actually have to buy once from the Apple App Store and once from Google Play. There isn't anything we can do about that. But however, on a single platform, Apple or Google, or you can use through family sharing facilities and so on the store, you can have the app in a home environment on a number of different devices.
Okay, that's good.
However, in a school environment, the licensing is such that you need one license for each installation, and we do support Apple's Apple Schools volume purchase program, and if you buy 20 in a row, you get them at half price.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's a good thing, the volume purchasing. Margaret's asking, when searching for the app, is it special apps CIC, or I guess that on the App Store, there's probably others that show up if you do a search for special iApp?
No, if you just search for special iApps on the App Store, but also if you go to our website at specialiapps.org, which you'll find just by doing a special app search on Google, then there are links to all three of the stores, to the Apple App Store, to Google Play, and to Amazon App Store for Amazon Fire tablets. And there are links for all the individual apps, which would take you, because it can be quite hard to find an individual app. But if you search for special apps on the store, you should very quickly find all our apps.
Okay, thanks. Poppy's asking, just very briefly, what's the Special Words Pro app?
Yes, there are two editions of Special Words. We tend to suggest in a school environment that the teacher has one copy of Special Words Pro and that children have a copy of Special Words. And the reason is that with Special Words Pro, you can download a number of hundreds of additional words from our website, which you can then share to the other copies. You can also print out the content, so that you can create paper cards that you can cut up and match and post through letterboxes and so on. And also the Pro version has some PDF assessment sheets that it will create for you, both for our own lists and for any lists that you create, so that you can then print that off and actually tick off what progress the child is making.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Colin. A question from Emma is asking, are there any web-based resources as the school can't access the App Store? So presumably you mentioned the Windows version. Would that be a web-based version?
Yes, that's going to be coming very, very soon. Currently we have apps, for the stores that you have to download from the store and you have to buy. Our new range of apps, which will be essentially look the same. I mean, if you're familiar with the idea of Microsoft Office 365 and so on, they are web-based apps, but they look and behave the same essentially as the original apps. You can use the camera and the microphone and sync with them and so on, and they look the same. And there are screenshots here where you can see our development version of Special Words running on an Apple Mac and running on a Windows 10 tablet in touch mode, and that would then you wouldn't have to go anywhere near the stores. But you would have to subscribe directly with us.
Okay, and just to finish, really, a nice comment from Tony at North College, Lancashire, saying he's looking at your website and it's worth a look. So that's great. Thanks for that, Tony. Okay, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks again for Collins for providing such a really interesting presentation. And so Robert will email everyone with the archive with the recording webinar, so you get a copy of that. Okay, so thanks again, everyone, and thanks again, Colin. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.